My daughter poisoned my birthday with her words, so I poisoned her entire life. Hi, welcome to the channel. This is what happened next. The clinking of glasses and forced laughter at the restaurant barely masked the tension that seized the air the moment my daughter, Tiffany, raised her glass. "To your useless life, Mom," she sneered, her words hanging like a shroud. The guests, a mix of Tiffany's socialite friends and a few of my old acquaintances, stared at their plates, the silence screaming louder than any insult. I gripped my wine glass, the stem cool against my palm, and forced a smile that felt like a crack in my face. Tiffany leaned back, a smirk playing on her lips, her designer dress shimmering under the chandelier's light. Marcus, her husband, sat beside her, his perfectly sculpted beard doing little to hide his own disdain. He sipped his wine, his eyes glinting with amusement. My chest burned, but my voice remained steady. "Are you quite finished, dear?" I asked, a low growl escaping my throat. She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Finished? Oh, Mom, I'm just getting started. You sit there pretending to be some kind of martyr, but what have you ever really accomplished?" She waved a dismissive hand at the opulent restaurant, on the untouched birthday cake with "Happy 60th" scrawled in icing. "You're a nobody. Always were." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. Not yet. I thought of the deed to the sprawling mansion, my life savings, meant for her and Marcus. It was to be my legacy, my way of giving Tiffany the life I never had. Now that deed felt like a stone in my pocket, heavy and utterly worthless. Marcus leaned forward, his voice as smooth as aged whiskey. "Patricia, we don't need your approval. We've earned our place. He paused, his gaze sweeping over me as if I were a stain on his bespoke suit. "You're just here." I set my glass down, the clink echoing in the stunned silence. "I was going to give you something tonight. A house, paid in full. But after this," I looked at Tiffany, then Marcus. "Forget it." The room froze. A woman at the next table gasped. Tiffany's face contorted, her cheeks flushing crimson. "You're lying!" she shrieked, slamming her fist on the table. Wine slossed from a glass, staining the pristine white tablecloth like blood. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was in my eyes, and she saw it. Her rage boiled over. She stood, knocking her chair back with a violent screech. "You're pathetic, Mom. Always playing the victim. I'm done with you." Marcus grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her silken sleeve. "Let's go, Tiv. She's not worth it." He shot me a look, cold, dismissive, as if I were mere refuse on the pavement. They stormed towards the door, her expensive heels squeaking on the polished floor. The door slammed behind them, the sound sharp as a gunshot. The remaining guests muttered, avoiding my gaze. The waiter hovered, unsure, then began clearing plates. The table was a desolate landscape of crumpled napkins, half-eaten food, and that untouched cake. I sat there, utterly alone, the relentless tick of the restaurant's clock drilling into my skull. Years of sacrifice, and this was my reward. A daughter who spat in my face, a son-in-law who saw me as an antique to be discarded. I paid the bill, my hand steady but spite the storm raging within. The cool night air hit me as I stepped outside, sharp and invigorating. I didn't go home. Not yet. I walked, the city lights blurring as my mind churned. Tiffany's cruel words replayed, each one a deeper cut. But something else stirred, a faint, vivid memory of a promise I'd made long ago, a promise to myself. The house was too quiet, a silence that pressed on my chest. I sat in the living room, the only light emanating from a lamp that flickered with every gust of wind rattling the windows. In my lap rested the family album, its leather cover worn smooth from years of handling. I opened it, and there we were. Me, Robert, my late husband, and Tiffany smiling at some long-gone picnic, her tiny hand clutching a balloon, her grin wide enough to melt your heart. I traced the photo, my thumb smudging the edge. Where had that innocent girl gone? My mind slipped back unbidden to the day I sold my beloved vintage car. It was a classic, a cherished possession, but it ran perfectly and I adored it. Tiffany had been accepted into an elite university, a dream I couldn't afford on my salary alone. I stood in the driveway watching the buyer drive it away, the cash in my pocket feeling like a betrayal. That money paid for Tiffany's first semester. She hugged me that night, her voice thick with promises. "I'll make you proud, Mom. I'll pay you back." I believed her. God, I believed her. I turned a page. Another photo, Tiffany at her graduation, her cap tilted, her smile radiating an almost arrogant confidence. I'd worked double shifts at the firm, crunching numbers until my eyes burned, all to cover her tuition. When her first business venture, a high-fashion online boutique, flopped spectacularly, I'd bailed her out, wiring her a hefty sum without a second thought. She'd called me her hero then, sworn she'd never forget it. The album felt heavier now. I turned another page, and there was Robert's funeral. Tiffany stood apart, absorbed in her phone while I shook hands with mourners. She didn't stay long. "Got a meeting," she mumbled. "Meeting, Mom," she'd mumbled, leaving me in that echoing, empty church. I hadn't cried that day. I didn't know how. The silence in the house grew louder, broken only by the mournful creak of the floorboards. I closed the album, my fingers lingering on the cover. All those years, I told myself it was worth it. Every late night, every missed vacation, every dream I'd shelved. They were for her, for Tiffany. And what did I get? A daughter who called me a failure in front of a room full of strangers. My gaze drifted to the wall, to the antique clock Robert loved. Its ticking was relentless, each second a brutal reminder of time I couldn't get back. I stood, the album sliding to the couch. Enough. I'd spent too long waiting for Tiffany to be the daughter I'd raised. She wasn't that girl anymore. Maybe she never was. I crossed the room to my desk, the floor cold under my socks. My laptop sat there, a dark rectangle. I opened it, the blue light harsh against the dim room. My hands hovered over the keys. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to sit in this silence anymore. Not tonight, not ever again. The laptop's glow illuminated my face, casting long, dancing shadows on the study walls. The clock on the shelf ticked, steady as a heartbeat, urging me forward. I typed Tiffany's name into the search bar, my fingers deliberate. Articles popped up, her name tied to a string of business deals, each shakier than the last. One headline caught my eye. Socialite's boutique faces scrutiny over unpaid debts. I leaned closer, a grim smile tugging at my lips. So Tiffany was in trouble. Good. I scrolled, piecing together the financial quagmire she'd created. Her latest venture, a luxury cosmetics line, was bleeding money. Investors were pulling out. I remembered her bragging about it last year, all swagger and promises of global expansion. I'd warned her it sounded precarious, but she'd laughed me off, called me out of touch. Now, here was the irrefutable proof she'd overplay her hand. My mind flicked back to a moment 2 years ago. Tiffany, over dinner, boasting about a game-changing endorsement deal. I asked simple questions about cash flow, contracts. She snapped, told me to stick to my boring spreadsheets. I let it go. I always let it go. Not anymore. I grabbed my phone and dialed Eleanor, an old friend from my days as a corporate analyst. She picked up on the second ring, her voice raspy but warm. "Patricia? Heavens, it's late. Are you all right?" "I need a favor," I said, keeping my tone even. "Tiffany's business. I want details. Off the record." Eleanor paused, then chuckled. "Your girl's been playing with fire, hasn't she? I've heard whispers. Give me a day. I'll dig up what I can." "She's not my girl anymore," I said, the words sharper than I intended.
Eleanor didn't push. She promised to call tomorrow and hung up. I set the phone down, my pulse steady for the first time in hours. I pulled a notepad from the drawer, the paper crisp under my pen. I wrote, Tiffany, debts, bad deals. Then, Marcus, image, social media. He was a budding public figure, his life a curated lie on Instagram. One crack in that facade and he'd crumble. I'd seen his type before. People who lived for likes, not truth. His weakness was as clear as Tiffany's. The pen scratched as I jotted ideas. Quiet moves, nothing flashy. I wasn't some cartoon villain. This was about justice, about showing them I wasn't the nobody they thought I was. I'd spent decades building a life, a fortune, while they squandered theirs. They underestimated me. That was their grave mistake. I stood, crossing to the study door. I closed it, the click solid, final. The room felt different now, like a war room instead of a refuge. The clock ticked on, but it didn't bother me anymore. It was counting down to something new. I sat back at the desk, my eyes on the screen. A new article loaded. A photo of Tiffany shaking hands with some investor, her smile all teeth. I clicked it, and there it was, the first thread to pull. The library's reading room smelled an old paper and dust, the kind that clings to your clothes. I sat at a corner table, surrounded by stacks of financial journals, their pages yellowed and crisp. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a nudge to keep digging. My laptop hummed softly, open to a database of business filings. Tiffany's name glared back at me from the screen, tied to a sinking ship of a company. I jotted a note. Over-leveraged, investors fleeing. My pen, its grip worn smooth, scratched against the paper. I'd spent decades analyzing numbers, spotting cracks in deals others missed. That skill, dormant since retirement, woke up now. Tiffany's business was a house of cards. Big promises, no substance. I found an article buried in a trade journal detailing a shady loan she took to prop up her cosmetics line. The terms were predatory, the kind that bury you. I smiled, thin and sharp. She'd always been reckless, but this was a gift. My mind flicked back to a dinner last spring. Tiffany, glass in hand, bragging about a bulletproof deal. I asked about the lender, and she snapped, told me to mind my own business. I should have pushed harder. Instead, I paid for her expensive wine. Never again. I pulled out my phone and called Eleanor. She answered, her voice low as if she were in a meeting. Patricia, you're obsessive, she said, half joking. What now? Tell me about Tiffany's loan, I said, my voice unwavering. The one from that offshore outfit.
Eleanor sighed. It's a mess. High interest, tied to some sketchy firm. She's missed payments. Word is they're circling. And there's talk of an ethics probe. Something about fudged numbers. She paused. You sure you want to go down this road? I'm sure, I said, my tone flat. Eleanor promised more details and hung up. I leaned back, the chair creaking. An ethics probe, that could ruin her. The library was quiet, save for the rustle of pages and the hum of a fluorescent light. I crossed to the copier, feeding it an article about Tiffany's questionable deal. The machine whirred, spitting out pages that felt like ammunition. Back at my table, I sifted through Marcus's world next. His Instagram was a shrine to perfection. Luxury cars, curated brunches, sponsored posts. But the comments told another story. Brands dropping him, whispers of inflated follower counts. One scandal, and his carefully constructed empire would crack. I stacked the documents, their edges uneven, and slid them into a folder. The clock read 7 p.m. Time was moving, and so was I. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the glass doors of the library. I stepped through them, the folder under my arm, and headed to a quiet cafe down the street. My next move was close. So close I could feel it. The cafe's corner booth was dimly lit, the kind of spot where no one looks twice. My laptop screen glowed, a VPN masking my tracks. The air smelled of burnt coffee and pastries gone stale. I typed carefully, crafting an email to one of Tiffany's most prominent investors, a man named Mr. Sterling, known for cutting losses fast. The subject line was simple: urgent concerns regarding your investment. Attached were scanned copies of the predatory loan agreement and that damning article. No signature, no trace, just irrefutable facts. I hovered over the send button, my finger steady. This was it, the first cut. I thought of Tiffany's smirk at my birthday, her voice calling my life useless. She laughed then. Let's see her laugh now. I clicked. The email vanished into the ether, a silent arrow aimed at her heart. My mind drifted to a moment years back, Tiffany crowing about her genius deals. I'd warned her about shady partners, but she brushed me off. "You're stuck in the past, Mom," she'd said. Stuck, maybe, but I knew how to play clean and quiet, skills she never learned. My phone buzzed, snapping me back to the present. Tiffany's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice, then answered, my voice calm. "What the hell, you old hag?" she shrieked, her words slurring with rage. "You sent that email, didn't you? Sterling just pulled out. My deal's tanking." I leaned back, the booth's vinyl creaking. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, each word measured. "Sounds like your own mess finally caught up with you." "Don't play dumb," she screamed. "I heard a crash, something glass, maybe a bottle. You're trying to ruin me." "You're doing that yourself," I said, and hung up. My pulse was steady, my hands cool. I checked my inbox. A reply from Mr. Sterling's assistant. "Mr. Sterling is reviewing the materials and has paused all commitments." Perfect. The cafe's clock ticked, its hands creeping toward evening. Tiffany's threats echoed, but they were hollow. She was scrambling, and I was just starting. Marcus was next. His sponsors wouldn't like what I found about his authentic brand. I closed my laptop, the screen's light fading. The door jingled as I stepped outside, a small voice recorder in my pocket, its weight a promise of more to come. The knock on my door was sharp, like a rap on a coffin. A vengeful mother, scorned by her own daughter, meticulously dismantled their lives, paving her path to peace with their ruin. This is the conclusion of her calculated retribution. The knock on my door was a hammer on steel. I knew who it was before I opened it, my hand brushing the voice recorder in my pocket, its button already pressed. The living room was dark, save for a flickering lamp that cast long, accusing shadows on the walls. I opened the door, and there they stood. Tiffany, her face red and twisted, and Marcus, his eyes cold as frost. The sharp, floral scent of Tiffany's perfume hit me like an insult. "You've gone too far," Tiffany spat, pushing past me, her designer shoes scuffing the hardwood. Marcus followed, his expensive loafers clicking, his purse clutched like a shield. I closed the door, the click loud in the tense air. "Sit," I commanded, gesturing to the couch. They didn't. Tiffany paced, her fists clenched, while Marcus stood rigid, his lips a thin, angry line. "You tanked my deal," Tiffany snarled, her voice low and dangerous. "Sterling's gone, and now the bank is calling. You owe me, Mom. Fix this." I crossed my arms, my face a mask of indifference. "Oh, you. After what you said, you called me nothing." Marcus stepped forward, his voice smooth, practiced. "Patricia, let's be reasonable. We're family. You don't want to hurt Tiffany's future, do you?"
Tiffany slammed a hand on the wall, the sound sharp enough to make me flinch. "Stop playing games. Give me the money to cover the loan, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a selfish old woman you are." I didn't flinch. The recorder hummed silently, catching every word. "You're not getting a dime," I said. "You made your choices." Marcus's mask slipped, his voice sharp with venom. "You're pathetic, Patricia, hoarding your money while we struggle. You're no mother." He turned to Tiffany. "Let's go. She's useless." Tiffany glared, her breath heavy. "This isn't over. I'll bury you." She stormed to the door, Marcus trailing her. The door slammed, the sound echoing in the quiet house. The clock ticked, steady, relentless. I pulled the recorder out, its red light steady. I played it back, their voices clear, Tiffany's threats, Marcus's venom. My lips curved, not quite a smile. This was gold. I sat at my desk, the recorder beside my laptop. The screen awoke with a soft glow, and I opened a new file. Tiffany and Marcus thought they could bully me. They were about to learn how profoundly wrong they were. The lawyer's office was cramped, the air thick with the scent of ink and old coffee. Papers teetered in stacks on the desk, and a window AC unit rattled like it was on its last legs. I slid a USB drive across to Richard, my old friend and occasional legal counsel. His gray eyebrows lifted as he plugged it into his laptop. The clock on his wall ticked, each second a reminder that time was my ally now. I leaned back in the creaky chair, my notebook open, its pages filled with precise inked steps. Richard played the recording, Tiffany's threats, Marcus's venom. His frown deepened with every word. "This is dynamite, Patricia," he said, pausing the audio, "but dangerous. You sure you want to play this game?" "I'm not playing," I said, my voice low, steady. "They crossed the line. I'm just evening the score." He nodded, rubbing his chin. "All right, we can use this, but no fingerprints. Anonymous leaks, third parties. You're too close to this." He jotted a note, his pen scratching. "What's the end game?" I didn't answer, not fully. My plan was a mosaic, pieces falling into place. The recording to discredit Marcus, pressure on Tiffany's creditors to tighten the noose. I'd spent years untangling financial knots for clients. Now I'd unravel my daughter's life. "Just make sure it's airtight," I said. Back home, the house was silent save for the clock in the hall. Its ticking felt like a pulse, steady and sure. I sat at my desk, the notebook open. Step 1. Alert Tiffany's creditors about her missed payments, using public records to nudge them into action. Step 2. Leak Marcus's recording to a rival influencer, someone hungry enough to expose him. Each line in my notebook was a brick in the wall I was building, one that would box them in. I thought of Tiffany's birthday toast, her smug grin as she called me worthless. The memory stung, but it fueled me too. I'd given her everything, my savings, my time, my dreams. And Marcus, with his polished cruelty, had egged her on. They thought I was weak, a relic. They'd learn how wrong they were. Richard called later, confirming the first move was ready. "The creditor letters were drafted," he said. "No trace to you. Send it tomorrow and they'll be on Tiffany like vultures." I thanked him and hung up, my pulse calm. The envelope sat on my desk, addressed to a loan officer who'd never know my name. I picked it up, its weight solid, final. Tomorrow, the first domino would fall. The morning sun filtered through my kitchen blinds, painting stripes on the table. I sipped coffee, its bitterness sharp, and unfolded the newspaper. The headline screamed, "Local socialite faces financial ruin." Tiffany's name in bold, her photo grainy but unmistakable, head down, dodging cameras outside her office. I set the mug down, a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. The clock ticked, each sound a nail in her coffin. I'd mailed the letter to Tiffany's creditors 2 days ago, a carefully worded tip about her unpaid debts, public records, nothing traceable. They'd moved fast, demanding immediate repayment. Eleanor called as I scanned the article, her voice grim. "It's a bloodbath, Patricia. Tiffany's office is a ghost town. Creditors froze her accounts. She's done." "Good," I said, flipping the page. "What else?" Eleanor hesitated. "She's fighting with Marcus. I heard them at a bar last night. She was screaming about her brand, how he's dragging her down." She chuckled darkly. "They're cracking." I remembered Tiffany at 20, eyes bright, promising to build an empire. I'd believed her, poured money into her first venture. When it tanked, she blamed everyone but herself.
"You're too cautious, Mom," she'd say. Cautious? That caution was my weapon now. The article detailed Tiffany's default, investors bailing, contracts canceled, a lawsuit looming. I leaned back, the chair creaking. Every word was a brick I'd laid, every failure a step closer to justice. Eleanor's voice cut through my thoughts. "You didn't hear this from me, but Tiffany's begging for a bailout. No one's biting."
Let her beg, I said, and hung up. I opened my laptop, the screen waking with a soft glow. Social media buzzed with Tiffany's name. Mocking memes, angry comments from former partners. She was unraveling, and I was watching from the sidelines, untouched. But Marcus was still standing, his Instagram a facade of calm that wouldn't last. I thought of the recording, his voice dripping with contempt. One move and his sponsors would scatter. I clicked to a rival influencer's profile, someone with a grudge and a big audience. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to strike. The living room was dark, the only light from my laptop screen. I'd sent the recording to a blogger named Chloe, a rival who'd clashed with Marcus online. The email was anonymous, the file untraceable. Now I scrolled through Marcus's Instagram, his latest post a desperate plea, "Ignore the lies, I'm still your guy." The comments were brutal, fans turning, sponsors silent. His phone, I imagined, was dark, its screen a mirror of his fading influence. The clock on the mantel ticked, counting down his reign. Chloe had moved fast. She'd posted the recording last night, Marcus's voice clear. She's useless, pathetic. The clip spread like wildfire, racking up views. Brands dropped Marcus within hours, their logos vanishing from his profile. I leaned back, the couch creaking, and let a small smile form. He'd called me invisible at a party once, his laugh sharp as glass. Invisible? Not anymore. I thought of that night, him standing by Tiffany, both of them mocking me in front of their friends. I'd swallowed the hurt, gone home, sat in this same room. Now the silence felt different, powerful, like the calm before a storm. I refreshed the page. A new post from Marcus, a shaky video. "This is a misunderstanding. I'm not that person." His composure was gone, his voice thin. The comments tore him apart. Eleanor called, her tone gleeful. "Marcus is done, Patricia. No sponsors, no invites. He's radioactive." She paused. "You're playing a hell of a game." "No game," I said, my voice even. "Just consequences." I hung up, my eyes on the screen. A news site ran a story. Influencer falls, shock in Chicago elite. Marcus's photo, his smile forced, stared back. I closed the laptop, the click sharpened the quiet house. I stood, stretching, and glanced at the clock. Late, but I wasn't tired. Tiffany and Marcus were cornered, their lives crumbling under the weight of their own greed. I'd planned every step, and it was working. But I wasn't done. Not yet. A knock at the door broke the silence, hard and urgent. My pulse quickened, but I didn't flinch. I knew who it was. I crossed the room, my step steady, and reached for the handle. The knock came again, harder, rattling the doorframe. I stood in the dim hallway, the clock on the wall ticking like a metronome. My hand rested on the knob, steady, as I opened the door. Tiffany and Marcus stood there, soaked from the rain, their faces drawn and desperate. Tiffany's shirt clung to her, wrinkled. "Mom," she started, her voice cracking. "We're wrong. We were wrong, please." She stepped forward, her shoes squelching. Marcus clutched his purse, his knuckles white.
You have to help us, he said, his tone soft, almost pleading. But his eyes betrayed a flicker of calculation. I didn't move. The memory of Tiffany's toast burned in my mind. Her smirk, her words, your life's waste. I saw Marcus's cold smile, his dismissal of me as nothing. Now here they were, broken, begging. Help you? I said, my voice low, even. After what you did? Tiffany's face twisted. We lost everything. The business, the sponsors, everything's gone. Her hand shook and she ran one through her wet hair. You did this, didn't you? But I'm your daughter. You can't just destroy me. Marcus touched her arm, his voice smoother. Patricia, we're family. You're better than this. Let's fix it together. His words were honey, but they rang hollow, like a script he'd rehearsed. I stepped back, my gaze hard. The clock ticking filled the silence. I said, you made your choices. You spat on everything I gave you. Family, you don't know the meaning of it. Tiffany lunged forward, her voice rising. You're heartless. You ruined us. I held up a hand, stopping her cold. Marcus grabbed her sleeve, his nails digging in, but his eyes stayed on me, searching for a crack. He found none. Get out, I said, each word deliberate. You're not welcome here. Tiffany's jaw dropped, her breath ragged. Marcus's face hardened, his mask slipping. You'll regret this, Patricia, he's hissed, but his voice trembled. I opened the door wider, the rains patter against the porch. They hesitated, then turned, Tiffany muttering under her breath. The door closed with a heavy thud, locking them out. The silence that followed was thick, unbroken except for the clock's steady rhythm. I walked to the living room, my steps slow. On the mantel sat a framed photo of Robert, my late husband, his smile soft, timeless. I touched the glass, my fingers lingering. You'd hated this, Robert, but it's done. The weight of the night settled, but it wasn't heavy. It was final.
The sun blazed over the community center, its lawn dotted with balloons and banners. A crowd milled about, their chatter warm, excited. I stood at a podium, the microphone cool in my hand, a bronze plaque gleaming behind me, the Robert Greenwood Foundation. The air smelled of fresh grass and hope. The clock tower nearby ticked, its sound faint but present, a reminder of time moving forward. I cleared my throat, the crowd quieting. This foundation, I said, my voice steady, is for families who need a hand up, for kids who deserve a chance. It's Robert's dream, and today, it's real. Applause erupted, hands clapping, faces smiling. I scanned the crowd, neighbors, strangers, a few old colleagues. No Tiffany, no Marcus, just people who believed in this. Robert's face flashed in my mind, his laugh bright as we planned a future of giving back. We'd never gotten there together, but I was here now, honoring him. My chest tightened, but I pushed through, shaking hands as people approached. A young mother thanked me, her son clutching the scholarship letter. This changes everything, she said, her eyes shining. I nodded, words caught in my throat. An organizer, a wiry man named Paul, leaned in as the crowd thinned. Heard your daughter's in rough shape. Skip town, they say. I shrugged, my face neutral. That's her story, not mine. Paul nodded, letting it drop. The rumors didn't matter. Tiffany and Marcus were shadows now, their lives a cautionary tale. The ceremony ended, and I walked to my car,
the sun warm on my back. The foundation was funded, millions from my savings, built over decades of quiet discipline. I'd never flaunted it, never needed to. Now, it was Robert's legacy, not just mine. The thought steadied me, like a hand on my shoulder. I reached my car, pausing at the mailbox nearby. A single envelope waited, the handwriting unmistakably Tiffany's. My fingers brushed it, the paper rough. I slipped it into my pocket, unopened. The clock tower chimed, its notes carrying on the breeze. I wasn't ready to read her words. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The memorial garden was quiet, the stone marker for Robert glowing in the fading light. I sat on a bench, the air cool, carrying the faint scent of smoke. In my hand was Tiffany's letter, its edges creased from my grip. I'd read it once in the car, her words a jumble of excuses and pleas. "Meet me, Mom. I can fix this." I shook my head, the paper trembling slightly. Fix what? The years of disdain? The betrayal? There was nothing left to mend. I struck a match, the flame small but fierce. The letter caught fast, curling into ash that drifted to the ground. The fire felt right, cleansing, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. The clock on my wrist ticked, its rhythm a quiet promise of days ahead. I thought of Robert, his dream of seeing Italy, cobblestone streets, warm cafes. We'd planned it together, but life got in the way. Now, I'd go for both of us. Earlier, I'd called a travel agent, my voice firm. "I want one ticket to Rome, next month." The agent chirped about itineraries, but I barely listened. My mind was already there, walking through history, free. The thought brought a smile, small but real. I stood, brushing ash from my hands, and approached the memorial. The stone was cold under my fingers, Robert's name carved deep. "I did it, Robert. I'm free." The words hung in the air, soft against the silence. Tiffany and Marcus were gone, their lives a distant echo. I didn't need to know where they were or what they'd do. They'd built their ruin. I'd built my peace. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and pink. I walked to my car, the gravel crunching underfoot. In my mind, Rome waited. Its bustle, its warmth, its promise of a life unburdened. The clock ticked on, each second a step towards something new. I slid into the driver's seat, the engine humming to life, and drove into the dusk, the road ahead wide open.